All right, hello everybody. Get everything started here. Welcome to week April 26th. I'm going to talk about equipment maintenance and cleaning this week. Lab on Monday the 26th. Kind of do a review of some of the equipment as we go through some of the maintenance aspects of each piece of equipment. To kind of brush up for quiz on the 3rd and then your final on the 10th. Okay, so that'll kind of be thought process for Monday the 26th. But the equipment maintenance and cleaning, right? Cleaning is what it is, right? Cleaning is simple. Why do we clean things? Clean them to keep them looking good. Makes them perform better as well. Cleaning the air filters out, cleaning the dust off of them, cleaning debris off of them, all those types of things, right? So cleaning is the simple aspect. The equipment maintenance part, it's not complicated, right? But, it's something that we need to do, something that we need to pay attention to, something that we need to talk about, something that each company needs to implement, right? So you're not doing preventative maintenance, you're doing reactive maintenance. And there's always going to be reactive maintenance, right? I mean, something is always going to break. No doubt about that. You can do all the preventative maintenance in the world, but something's going to break. So that's going to be reactive. But can we do some things, to prevent some major things from happening, right? I mean, think of your car. Simple little things that you do to your car. Oil change, right? You get your oil changed so the oil's fresh, the engine doesn't block up. All those types of things. So simple, routine things that you do for your car, coincide to pieces of equipment that we use in landscaping. Same type of thing. So not complicated, but things we need to talk about, things we need to be aware of. So some of the things we're going to talk about today: greasing the machines, why we grease, show a little clip on what that grease fitting actually does, because that's part of the maintenance of these pieces of equipment that we operate. They have little grease fittings to go through, make sure they're greased properly, along with cleaning out the air filters, changing air filters, making the maintenance log, and just doing your preventative maintenance in general. Preventative maintenance is all of those things in general. We're going to just talk about a couple of these things because these are the types of things that you do as a manager, as a technician, and whatnot. We've gone back and forth about mechanicking and repairs and things along that line. But these types of things are something that, you as an owner, you as a manager will need to require your managers, your crew leaders, your technicians to do on their own pieces of equipment, because these are simple things that can prolong the lifespan of the equipment. Okay. So why do we do preventative maintenance, right? Fewer expensive repairs caused by unexpected equipment failure. Same thing with your car, right? You hopefully change the oil on your car. Hopefully you rotate the tires on your car, because the tires in the front are going to wear out faster than the tires in the back. It's just the way the car works. They're mostly front wheel drive. They're turning. They're doing their type of thing. So they're going to wear out more. So if you rotate them, then all 4 tires should have an equal wear on your vehicle, prolonging the life of the tires. Okay. So that's a preventative maintenance thing. Similar type things that in the landscape business equipment aspect, right? So, there's air filters that get clogged up because it's dirty. We do have grease fittings that we go around and we grease those fittings. Sharpening mower blades is one, right? I mean, you want to do that for the health of the turf, but you also want to do it for the health of the equipment too. So those are the preventative type things that we want to do. Obviously, changing oil as well. Tires, right? I mean, we're going to wear out tires on our equipment. We'll wear out tracks on a skid loader. The tracks have treads too, and they'll wear out, so we have to replace those. Otherwise, we're going to start to get into the rollers on those, on the skid loaders. And that's not, if you start wearing that rotor down, it's no different than you wearing a rim down when you have a flat tire, right? If you drive on that flat tire for 5 miles, you're going to have to replace your rim too, instead of just pulling over and changing it and moving on, okay? So ideally, preventative maintenance, prevents equipment failure before it occurs, but not everything's preventable, kind of like we said. You can change the oil, you can rotate the tires, you can do all these things. That doesn't mean that the engine's still not going to have a problem, right? You can change spark plugs, filters on your car, all those types of things. So that doesn't mean you're not going to have a problem still, right? But if you do the preventative maintenance, you're hoping that you get the lifelong expectancy out of your equipment, out of your vehicle, whatever the case may be, right? You hope that you do these things to prolong the life of that equipment or vehicle. So, it's proven, right? It's going to save time, it's going to reduce cost, and keep an operation running efficiently, right? So it's proven that preventative maintenance does work. Okay, so it's not just something that you talk about, you half-heartedly do, and there's no results. There are results from doing this, right? So what are some of the preventative maintenance items? We've talked about a lot of these, right? Changing the oil, changing the filter, cleaning it, sharpening blades, and cleaning the equipment, right? Cleaning the equipment, helps that stuff, right? I mean, the grease fitting has a hole in it, even though it's very small. Things can get in that grease fitting. Dirt, debris, dust, all that type of stuff can get in there. So if you're cleaning that out, trying to get that stuff cleaned off of your equipment, it can help prevent a lot of those things from getting into your grease fittings and oil filters and air filters and all those types of, not much is going to get an oil filter on that air filter, but if you're, not much is going to get, not much dirt is going to get in the oil filter. The air filter, though, if you're getting dirt and debris in the air filter, you got to clean that out, right? You got to either blow it off or replace it. It's an inexpensive part, but helps the life expectancy of that equipment run properly, right? It's not going to be as hot, and it's going to allow that engine to cool itself. So grease fitting, show you a little bit about what the grease fitting is, and how it works, and then we'll do a lot of this in the lab too, right? So this is something that we do at the park. Our technicians do, our managers do. We do it on a routine basis. And I'll be honest, whether we use this piece of equipment or we don't, we still go through those grease fittings through our routine maintenance and check it and make sure that it's still good, right? If it's a piece of equipment that sat outside for 6 months, went through the hot and the cold, freezing, thawing, whatever the case is, the grease is in that joint. Still things can happen to that grease in that joint, right? So, need to do those things even when you're not using that piece of equipment, right? Same thing if your car, right? If you have a car that sits in the garage for 8 months, and you change the oil beforehand, well, that oil breaks down too, right? So, this thing just sits there for 8 months. You still need to go through it, do the preventative maintenance things, in order to make sure that the oil is up to date, its viscosity is right, so that way when you start running that piece of equipment, it is in good condition. Okay, so the grease is what lubricates those joints, right? Those joints are usually metal on metal on our pieces of equipment. That's why there's a joint there. That's why there's a grease fitting there, and that's why we grease them. Okay. So let's look at how a grease fitting really works. Just a short little video to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about.
Grease guns are an integral part of proper machine lubrication, but are also capable of inflicting damage and injury if used incorrectly. How to use a grease gun, which is part of Noria's Reliable Skills training series addresses the many aspects of proper grease gun use, including best practices for lubricating machinery. The following is an example for this essential training video. Permanently installed in the machinery by a threaded connection. The nipple connector on the grease fitting is what the grease gun attaches to. Inside the nipple, the small captive ball is pushed back against its retaining spring by the pressure from the grease gun. It functions like a valve that opens under pressure, allowing the grease to pass through a channel being pushed into the voids of the bearing. When pressure stops, the ball returns to its closed position. The ball helps keep dirt and other contaminants out, but it also acts like a check valve to keep grease from escaping. If you notice grease coming out of the nipple connector after greasing, there's probably a particle preventing the ball from forming.
So that's something that you can notice when you're cleaning, right? So, you know, these things don't last forever. They can be replaced. He's going to show you that in just 1 second. But these things do break. They malfunction. They do their thing. That's what happens when, you know, through the process of cleaning, keeping these things clean, you can see if they're malfunctioning and or working properly, right? So, you know, through the process, if this thing is not functioning properly, it's allowing grease out, which means it's allowing dirt and debris in, right? That's where, you know, that dirt and debris can get into those joints because it's malfunctioning, right? So at the end of the day, if things all junked up and gunky and there's a bunch of stuff all over it anyway, because there's grease that's leaking out, then there's dirt that sticks to the debris, grass that sticks to the debris, you don't know if that thing is really working or it isn't working. So meaning if it's not working and that stuff's getting inside this fitting, inside that joint, that's not good for your machine, okay? So keeping that clean, you know, will help you help you visibly be able to see if that thing's working properly. Obviously, you greasing it, you'll be able to tell if it's working properly as well.
In this situation, do not apply grease. Adding grease could force a particle into the bearing, causing wear and damage. The grease fitting should be removed and replaced with new fitting. Thank you for watching this sample from How to Use a Grease Gun. This video and the entire Reliable Skills training series are one of the most cost-effective and easy ways to deliver best practice lubrication training.
So that kind of helps you understand a little bit, right? Kind of like I said in the beginning, I thought it was a little longer than that, but it's okay. You can replace that fitting fairly easily enough. Okay, but those things do malfunction. They do allow particles in there. And cleaning and being able to visually inspect those things is the best way to do that. Obviously, when you're greasing it, it is one thing too, but if that thing still is clogged, got a bunch of debris on it, got all kinds of things on it, it's hard to see as well, okay? So here we go, you know, push mower guy out there getting his day in, right? Baling hay, long day, covered in grassy wetness, whatever. All right, so what do you think? What do you think this mower looks like from an air filter standpoint, right? So I mean, it's clogged. You know, it's got a bunch of grass on the top of it. I'm sure on the bottom of it here, underneath where the blades are, you know, there's some caked up grass, all kinds of things, right? So, you know, if we just go park this thing back in the shop, you know, next time we use it, I mean, that stuff's hardened up. It's clay. You know, that machine is not going to run in an optimal way. Not saying that machine won't fire up, do its job again, but over a course of time, that machine's running harder, hotter, working more than what it's supposed to be doing. Therefore, you're reducing the lifespan of it, right? So these are the types of things. This is a push mower. Put a zero turn here. Put a big walk behind here. Whatever the case is, they all look the similar same. So you know, Is that what that air filter looks like, right? So, I mean, that's, the engine's trying to suck in air through that air filter. Just looks, you're obviously not going to get very much clean air through there. So that engine's going to be under stress, right? So what does a dirty air filter do? It allows less air to circulate, which reduces the power and causes the engine to run hot, which all, at the end of the day, shortens the lifespan of your equipment. So air filters are on every piece of equipment that we've gone over this year, even some of the handheld stuff, right? Even a weed eater. Some of the newer models, maybe not as much, but even weed eaters, the edgers, the blowers, they all have air filters in them. They're small little air filters, not much to them. Doesn't cost much to replace them though either, right? So being able to replace them on a maintenance program is ideal for that equipment. So as you get into management, as you get into the ownership aspect, right? It's not that you want a paper trail. It's not that you want to create paperwork for people. But when you put things on paper and you write things down and people have to turn them in and people look at them and people check them, it puts a different meaning behind things, right? No different than doing a test in class, right? It's, we can ask you if you understand the information. We want you to learn the information, but putting it down on a piece of paper and saying, yes, I've learned it. I understand it. That's kind of the same process, just holds people accountable for doing that. Okay, so why do we do them, right? It's good reference, So it's good reference of, yeah, we did this, or no, we didn't do this. It can track your costs associated with a piece of equipment over time, right? So if we're replacing 87 air filters on a weed eater over the course of 5 years, and an air filter costs you $1, what's the big deal, right? Divide 87 by 5, less than $20 a year in air filters, and that thing lasted 5 years. That's probably longer than the life expectancy of it. So was that good? That was probably good, right? How many times did you replace the same part? Did we replace the carburetor on this thing 27 times already? I'm making these numbers up, obviously. But when it becomes more expensive, it's good to understand that. One thing that the commercial lawnmowers have are those wheel motors, which we've talked about. They're a hydraulic motor. That's what's sending the power to make those wheels turn and whatnot. Yes, the engine is doing that as well, but those motors on those wheels are doing that. So those things are $700 a pop, $800 a pop. How many wheel motors are you replacing on one lawnmower, right? You pay 10 grand for a lawnmower, and you replace 2 wheel motors within the first 3 years. That's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? So what are we doing that we're having to do that? Are we if we don't have a maintenance log to keep track of it, we're not paying attention. But then it kind of goes back to, okay, well, why are we replacing these wheel motors? Not only that, did we replace the same wheel motor? So maybe maybe that was defective. Maybe we installed it wrong. Whatever the case may be. But maybe it comes down to an operator issue. What are we doing as operators that are making these wheel motors, malfunction the way that they are? Without keeping track of the maintenance laws and what you're doing on these pieces of equipment, it's hard to put that cost associated with the equipment. Okay, and it helps track of when you do it, right? So putting that down on a piece of paper, if we did it every 6 months, we replaced those wheel motors in 6 months time. Gee whiz, now all of a sudden I'm replacing a wheel motor every 6 months. That gets expensive. So same thing if it's a belt, right? If we're replacing belts every month, what are we doing? Maybe we're not buying the right belt, what are we doing on that piece of equipment that's causing that belt to be under too much stress, and popping those belts, right? Or, is that right? I mean, is that how many hours are associated with how we're using this piece of equipment per month? And every month we're going to need to replace a belt. That's fine too, right? We just need to know that. We need to know that cost. That helps us bid jobs. That helps us understand the costs of our business. So all that type of information, when you're keeping records of the things that you're doing to your equipment, is how you run a better business, right? All these things kind of boil back to holding employees accountable, right? So mentioned that before, you take a test, kind of hold people accountable, you write these things down, holds them accountable, employees check up on these things and they say, yeah, that looked good. And then tomorrow it breaks. But did you really check it? Did you half-heartedly check it? Do you know what you're checking? All those types of things come in, right? But if we're trying to get employees to understand how this equipment operates, how to make it last, and correlate that to what they do in their daily jobs, we're all going to be better off. The employee's going to be better off. The company's going to be better off. We're all going to make more money in the long run. So work orders come into play a lot with maintenance logs too. We'll get into that a little bit with the equipment, with the preventative maintenance. Work order systems are automated, right? They're computer based. You can put the information into the database and it spits it out whenever you want it to spit out, the frequency that you want it to spit out. Each person can be assigned into that work order system nowadays. So, if Nick puts that work, if Nick gets a work order and Nick completes that work order, okay, Nick signed off that this looks good. So, next week when it breaks, we can at least go back to Nick and say, hey man, what did you see? Did you notice anything? No, I didn't notice anything, So, okay, maybe everything's good. No problems, no harm, no foul. Accidents happen. Equipment breaks, problems occur, right? But do we, over a period of time, Nick closes all these work orders, Nick gets these work orders, he closes all these work orders, and then, it shows a week later his equipment breaks. So maybe Nick isn't really doing these work orders. Maybe he really isn't doing that preventative maintenance, so then we can fix that problem too, right? So, they're all good aspects to do and implement into your businesses. They're simple, right? Here's just a simple maintenance logs, the type of equipment, you can put the serial number, the manufacturer of what it is, when you purchased it, who's responsible, all these types of things. You can make these up, you can design them and orientate them to your specific company, your specific equipment, all that type of stuff, but having a date, what did you do? Who did it? Is there a validation before you put it into service, right? Who checked up behind it? When's the next maintenance plan? And comments, questions, whatever the case is, right? So, just it gives the record of what's been going on. That way you can look at this piece of equipment, you have a file, and if this is skid loader, file it in the skid loader file. Something bad happens with the skid loader, you can at least go back into your maintenance logs and be like, okay, let me look. Okay, well, no, I don't remember. Then we haven't changed oil in a year. Okay, well, that might explain. Well, we did all these other equipment things, but nobody ever changed the oil. So, it helps with those things. It helps the improvement process. Yes, you probably want to hold somebody accountable for not changing the oil, but at the end of the day, too, we learn, we move on, we try not to make that mistake again. Without having that record and that information, it's hard to do that, right? Another service record kind of just, you can make them computerized, where you put the information in and there's a cost associated with it, right? So, these Excel formulas and Excel spreadsheets, they can add up totals over a period of time, right? So you can keep those things going in an Excel spreadsheet. So you can have just the associated cost with the equipment. If you're putting that information in right, then you get a nice, you get a running total and a good accurate piece of information on that record. You know, these are these are generic, nothing special about any of these. You know, piece of equipment, date you did it, what you do, change your oil, anything associated, any cost associated, just kind of gives you a running total. Just a good reference point, something good to have. Like I say, these are very basic. These are very broad, but still very effective in what you're trying to do. So as we talk about preventative maintenance, right? Preventative maintenance goes pretty in depth of what it is. If you think about, you know, go back to your car, go back to you know, the AC unit on your house. Not only that, multiply that AC unit times whatever. I'm not an AC guy, I'm not an HVAC guy, you know, to an HVAC unit on an ACC school building, right? You know, if you're not doing preventative maintenance on that thing is not a $5,000 unit, right? I mean, it's a $150,000 unit that's running that school building, right? So if you're not doing any preventative maintenance on that, changing air filters, right? Whatever else you do to HVAC units, you know, that $150,000 piece of equipment is going to break down a whole lot sooner and not last as long as it should if you're not doing that. So preventative maintenance goes through a lot of different things, but it's very relevant to what we do in landscape because we have $100,000 pieces of equipment too, right? They're just a little different. We put them in the mud and take them in the trees, and we kind of do, you know, fun things with them. But at the end of the day too, it's a piece of equipment, has an engine, needs to be taken care of, right? So what is preventive maintenance program, right? Preventive maintenance program is a series of processes, guidelines, and tools that helps your business do as much preventative maintenance as possible by being efficient with its time and money, right? So it comes down to being efficient with your money and your time, right? So, you know, if a piece of equipment is broken and it's not operating, landscape-driven business, that piece of equipment is broken, sitting in your shop, it's not out making any money for you, right? Piece of equipment is operating on a job site, making money for you because you should be billing for that, right? So when it's broken, it's not making money. So what can we do to prevent it from being broken all the time is the gist, right? You know, facilities looking to break out of a reactive maintenance rut into a preventative maintenance rut, right? So, you know, all we doing is reactive maintenance. Are we just waiting for it to break instead of changing the oil, doing air filters, greasing these things? These are simple things that prolong the life. Cleaning them, you know, getting the dirt and the mud and all the caked up stuff that happens over the period of time. Okay, so you know, you want reliable things. You want things to be prolonged, all that type of stuff. Okay, so what does that look like, right? So what does preventative maintenance look like? It's transitioning from predominantly reactive to a mostly preventative one, right? And it takes time, dedication, resources, and a plan, right? So we have to do that. You know, we have to implement the forms, right? We got to implement these types of maintenance logs and that type of thing. We have to put that in place so people do it. We can also do work orders where we buy the work order system, implement that work order system, input the information in that work order system, right? But we have to do that. We have to do that as managers and owners. You know, creating a schedule, sticking to it, right? So all that information has to be put into your preventative maintenance program. You know, you have to allow your employees the time to do that. So, you know, if you have three landscape crews, 3 mowing crews, vice versa, either one or the other, whatever the case is, you have multiple crews. Not even that. Let's just say you have one crew. You have one mow crew. You have to give them the time in order to do the maintenance on their equipment, okay? Or they're not going to do it. You know, they're not going to stay late to do it if you don't pay them. You know, and if you don't set a time during the day to do it, they're not going to do it. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just, that's what it is. You know, so we have to do that as managers, as owners. We got to set that time aside. We got to, you know, implement that schedule, hold them accountable, that type of thing. So, preventative maintenance reduces unplanned downtime, backlog, miscommunication, accidents, and the cost associated, right? There's a cost associated when that equipment is down. It just is. Um, Preventative maintenance will help you conquer inefficiency and improve your maintenance program from top to bottom. If you allow your people to do preventative maintenance on their equipment weekly, if you are mowing 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, whatever the case is, you have a crew that does that. They need 2 hours a week, whatever the case is, to do the maintenance on that equipment. You just have to set that time aside. That's part of the schedule. Those pieces of equipment are more valuable to you operating for you to go in the morning, load that piece of equipment up, and it run all day perfectly is more valuable to you than the 2 hours that it takes for your folks to do preventative maintenance on that equipment. Okay, when you go in the morning and you start that lawnmower up and it doesn't start, it sits over here on the side, it's not valuable to you, right? It makes your guys work harder, makes them work slower, makes them more inefficient, all those types of things. Preventative maintenance is trying to prevent that. So just a couple steps, couple thought processes for a preventative maintenance program. All the logs, all the tasks of greasing, blowing out your air filter, all that is the preventative maintenance model. So how do we put this program into place to make it effective, right? So 8 steps in order to really kind of do that. Establish and prioritize goals. What's your goal? What's your goal as a manager? What's your goal as a company? Not what it can be what your preventative maintenance goal is, right? But that needs to be related to what your goal is as a company. So as a company, you sit down and you say, we're going to do $100,000 worth of sales this year. I'm going to pay our guys, X amount of dollars. I'm going to have this much money in fuel. I'm going to have this much money in repairs. I'm going to have this much money in blah, 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 blah. Cost of goods, all this stuff, right? So when you sit down and you do a budget of, if I run $100,000 and all these costs are what I'm estimating out to be, and repairs is part of it, then I'm going to make this much money at the end of the day. That repairs is a line item that, if you do preventative maintenance, it keeps it down, right? So if you got $100,000 and you got to replace the engine on your skid steer, now you're 15,000 behind already, 10, 15, right? So, that's the type of thing, establish your goal of what the goal is in the business to create your preventative maintenance, right? So build a successful preventative maintenance program to sit down and lay out what you want to achieve, right? Every facility is different, so it's all that type of thing. Write it down, look at it, show it on a piece of paper. Create KPIs and commit to measuring them, right? Key performance indicators is what a KPI is, right? So if you are doing annual reviews for your employees, and preventative maintenance is part of what you're holding them accountable for, that's how you measure it, right? So, hey, you're great out with the customers, you're great on the equipment, your properties all look good, but your crew has the highest repair costs out of the 4 crews that we have. What can we do to measure that different, right? So we can measure it. You're great. You're top notch in 3 out of 4 categories, but y'all kill the equipment. So what do we need to do? How can we help it, right? That helps that employee be better, and it helps that makes more money for the company. All these types of things help, right? The buy-in from your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Employees, right? Or buy into it. So if you have if this guy is measured on 4 items, and he's killing it on 3 of 4, and he's getting crushed on this other one, maybe his raise isn't the way that it should be, so maybe that'll help him buy in, whatever the case is, however you structure it as your as the owner, as the manager of your business. Okay, leveraging the right technology. Kind of goes back to the work order of a computerized thing. So, you know, you can you can get involved with all kinds of different programs, different companies that are computerized things, automated, you know, hooks up to your, not hooks up, but syncs with your iPhones, you know, all that type of stuff. You can have it on your phone to where that preventative maintenance is, you know, comes up on your phone. You can input the information on your phone, all that type of stuff. So, you know, is that what you are creating in your company? Is a paper worksheet good enough for you? You know, it's fine too, right? It's a record. It's something that you can go back and reference, all that type of thing. So, you know, that can work too. Very inexpensive way of doing things. Okay. Make sure your preventative maintenance triggers are accurate, right? So if you're putting this information in, or you're even scheduling it on a paper log, you know, are our intervals right? Are we spitting out this work order? Are we scheduling this oil change at the right times? You know, is it too infrequent, or is it too frequent? All those types of things, right? So, you know, too frequently is not necessarily a bad thing, but then again, if it's too frequent and it doesn't need to be done, you could be doing something else with that time. You know, so not that it's a bad thing to do it too frequently. It's okay, and if you stick with that as a company or as an organization, and that's part of your plan, that's fine. There's no problem with that. But if you are trying to maximize things, maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we can back off on that, and we can spend our time doing something else that's making us money, that type of thing. Okay, so you got to train and implement. You got to train your employees to do it. You have to take the time to show them how to do it right. You know, that takes time. And you have to be committed to that. Okay. Build a preventative maintenance checklist to analyze the results, right? So, you know, the one, if you go back, you know, this one here is is good, right? It's on paper. You can go back, you can look at it, you can reference it, right? This one's a little better. You know, if you look from good, better, best, whatever the case is, right? This is better, you know, so you can go back, you can look, you can analyze, like, what is this, what does this cost? You can see it. You can relate your employees back to it, right? So, hey, back in 2021, you know, we did X, Y, Z, right? So what does that look like? You know, analyze those results, you know, go over those results with your employees, you know, go over those results with your management, all those types of things, you know, bringing this information back up, you know, and talking about it, to analyze it, to figure that information out is all part of it. Okay. And then fine tune your plan. Your plan is always moving. Your plan is always juggling, you know. And if we think about landscape companies, you know, landscape companies can be as small as one, as big as whatever, as big as, you know, there is no limit as far as how big it can be, right? But, you know, it doesn't matter if you have one crew, and let's just say that there's 3 people on that crew. You have, if you're mowing grass, let's just use mowing grass as an example. If you have a 1 crew grass cutting crew, 3 people on that crew, more than likely you have at least 5 pieces of equipment, including a truck, right? You got a truck, you got a mower, got a couple weed eaters, got a blower, got an edger, got a couple mowers, whatever it is. You got at least 5 pieces of equipment, you know, on a one crew landscape business, you know. So that's 3 people, 5 pieces of equipment. You know, multiply that times 10, right? Now you got 10 crews. Now you got 50. You know, talking of a lot of pieces of equipment to be out on a daily basis. You know, preventative maintenance is going to start paying for itself, you know, because when you have 50 pieces of equipment out there, you know, repairs can start to add up. You know, they have 50 pieces of equipment, and let's just say 5% of that 50% breaks every day. Okay, great. That's what, 2 to 3 pieces of equipment. 2 to 3 pieces of equipment breaks. It's not operable a day. You know, hopefully it's nothing major. Hopefully somebody can fix that relatively quickly and easily and inexpensively. What happens when it's not, right? You know, what happens when it's that $700 wheel motor? You know, what happens when it's the belt that you don't have an extra one and it's down for the day? You know, a $50, $70, $100 belt, you know, cost a 3-man crew a mower for the day. You know, it's not just that $100 belt. Now how inefficient did they get all their jobs done? All those types of things, right? So you gotta fine tune your plan. You gotta talk about your plan. You gotta understand it. You gotta understand what you want to do as a company. So, you know, preventative maintenance, when we meet on Monday and we go over one piece of equipment and we move on to the next one, might not sink in the way it does when you have a company and there's multiple pieces of equipment out there daily, right? Preventative maintenance means something different. Think of the school, right? Preventative maintenance important for the HVAC at the school? You know, how many buildings do they have? How many $150,000 HVAC units do they have at the school? Is changing air filters important on those units? Yeah, it is, right? I mean, yeah. So let's think about that aspect. But Monday we'll go over those, go over the equipment, walk through them, kind of do a review, answer any questions, that type of thing. Our motivational one this week is Nancy. It's kind of the thought of how are you presenting your ideas, right? So we're doing presentations. You'll do presentations your whole life. You'll do interviews your whole life. Doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter what you do. You're going to do interviews. You're going to do presentations your whole life. Okay. Even if you are Tom Brady, you're going to do interviews your whole life, right? You're going to be on TV. How many times people asking you how many questions, whatever the case is, no matter what you do, you will do presentations. You will answer questions. You'll do interviews your whole life. Okay. So what Nancy talks about a little bit is about having your idea, presenting your idea, right? So if you're in an interview for a job, you were the idea, right? You were trying to sell yourself. You were trying to portray that you were the best candidate for that job. So that is your idea. How do you present that idea? We are talking about our presentation here on the 10th. You know, what is your idea? If your idea is the zero turn, what is your idea of this thing? You need to present that idea to your classmates, right? So click on that. I'm not going to go through it. It's not a long video, 15 minutes or so. I'm not going to go through that one here today, but you know, it's very good to just have the understanding of how do you get your idea, how do you get your thought across in a presentation and to other people. And like I say, those are things that you will do throughout your whole life. So our discussion question this week, you know, what kind of maintenance program are you going to set up at your company? Whether you're the manager, the owner, whatever the case is. You know, do you like the automated ones? Do you like the paper ones? How are you going to hold your employees accountable? Okay. And how often are you going to reference them, right? So you can go out and purchase a work order system, spend, you know, realistic cost. I mean, a work order system that we use in my department now, it's like $5,000 a year. It's a reoccurring cost. So $5,000 a year. Let's just say you go out and you spend $5,000 a year. You input all the information, got the work order system set up, all the staff gets their work orders every day, every week, however we set it up, every month. You spit out, okay, are we done? What else do we do? Are we going to reference it? Are we going to check up on them? Are we going to meet about it? Are we going to hold them accountable some way? All those types of things, so think about your work orders, not work orders, think about your maintenance, think about your maintenance program that you would like. It doesn't have to be an automated one. Like I say, if you're a small company, paper things that you can say, Johnny over here on crew one, he's the guy who does the preventative maintenance. He needs to turn in his paperwork, and he turns your paperwork in, and you look at it and you're like, okay, Johnny, it looks good. Any problems with it? Blah, blah, blah. Nope. Okay, well, we'll file this, right? And hopefully we don't ever have to look back at it. We don't ever look at it again, because we're doing our job. We're doing the preventative stuff, and we work on down the road. And if that works, that's great. That's great. But you have to implement that, because it works for a reason, right? It works for a reason because you're holding Johnny accountable. Johnny's actually doing the work, and there's a reference point for you guys to look back if Johnny didn't do his thing. And even if Johnny did his thing and something broke, that gives you a reference point of, maybe it's time to replace this piece of equipment too. So all that works. Just, interested to see y'all's thoughts and how it works and on how you guys would set something up. But other than that, hope you guys have a good rest of the week, day, whatever day you watch this thing. And we will see you on Monday.